So, guys, Penuel is all of a sudden now taking a whole 300 and not even 360 and 180 uh, angle direction, a whole turn, a U turn. So, as you know, he's been saying that foreigners are not taking jobs, people are scapegoating, and that there were other matters to it, and that we are seeing it from the bad light. But I don't know what actually had gotten him to reconsider. Maybe he spoke to somebody. Uh, Now all of a sudden, he is saying sorry for all the things that he had actually taken position in before. As you know, Penuel had always said that the foreigners aren't taking the jobs, that the foreigners aren't contributing to the unemployment in this country and to messing up this country. Well, he kind of also agreed on the drugs, but we all know it's not only them. But majority of people experience them to be the major push in it. Like we all see that every Sunday we are able to watch on TV where we see Golani is always busting people from certain countries, but there's one country that is leading in Africa. They're always selling these things to the kids and destroying our society. And as we know how dangerous they are, we honestly can't just sit by and say that things are good. Uh, so those are one of the things that people have been pushing. There's also the ones at the hospitals where we see the things that are happening in the hospital. It is intense, especially for the people where the big economies are, like the KZN areas, your Durbans, and your Gauteng areas, where a lot of these things are happening. So you see, even at the hospitals, there's a fight now for resources. Uh, Everywhere else, workplaces, workforces, even these ladies that were complaining recently in the KZN areas, complaining about migrants, saying that they are the machinists. I'm a machinist. I'm a qualified machinist. So, and that isn't something that's hard to do. You can just teach a few people, right? You could just teach a, a few people, and it takes like a week or two to learn that skill if you totally don't know anything. But if you have basic or you are fast to learn, you could learn that in 2 to 3 days. So those aren't special skills. But let's hear what Penuel has got to say and we'll react as it goes.
That I wouldn't comment on illegal foreigners, undocumented immigrants anymore, because I felt the topic was too complicated, too layered, too many stakeholders involved, and I was flip-flopping around the topic. And look, I have a lot of friends who are foreigners in South Africa, legally so, who work in corporate, who run businesses, etc. I also know a lot of, I guess what you call illegal foreigners. And I only assume, I've never asked them, by the way, I only assume based on the work that they're doing, where they stay in terms of informal settlements, etc., etc. So I just assume that I don't think you're meant to be here. I don't think you have a work permit. I definitely know you don't have a study permit because you're not studying. I don't think you're running a business. But I wanted to make this video because I've been processing. You know, I spoke to so many foreigners, I think legal and illegal, refugees, asylum seekers, people that own businesses, highly respected foreigners in South Africa from SADC, from the rest of the African continent. And luckily I had some foreigners coming in from other parts of the world as well. Sadly, not as many of them, but at least some that are engaged including a lot of my friends, and we had a lot of debates, we had a lot of discussions. I've been triggered by some of the political voices. You know, your Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, your Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, some of the people at the ANC, of course, Julius Malema of the EFF, and many other voices on social media. I've been triggered even more by many Africans who have been attacking South Africa and South Africans, and some of the international news platforms that are lying, blatantly lying about what's going on in South Africa. There's no country that I'm aware of in the world that doesn't respect its sovereignty to a point where they say you cannot come in here without documentation.
And that is all that we've been crying for. Because how can we just be allowing such a huge number of people in our country? Just look at those Malawians in that one place in Durban, where is it Sherwood or whatever that place is. Just that one place in Durban, about almost 10,000 Malawians now, but possibly. And these are people that are said to be investors. So South Africans, do you see investors when you look at those people? I see cheap labor. I see a workforce. I see people who are desperate, people who cannot afford to even get themselves home. They can't even get themselves, apparently it's 2,000. I couldn't be wrong. But I took that 2,000 from now. Apparently that Bushiri is planning on sending some buses there. So I saw those numbers on those posts. I really don't know how true those are, but let's just say 2,000. They can't even afford 2,000. And they said to be investors. Why are those people here? Because if you bring in foreigners, you should be bringing them at least being able to take care of them. It tells you that these people are broke. These people are probably living in the informal settlements. These people are living in the hijacked buildings. That is where they are living. Because you can see these people cannot afford a thing. They are desperate. So if it was another country, we would have been using that workforce, having them in camps, and then being able to take care of them there, and then making sure that you make sure that they build, they work, you put them in constructions. And then if South Africans do not want to be doing that, give them other top jobs. That is maybe a lot of the time how Malema thinks. But also, that could work like it is done in Saudi Arabia. But that also depends on how much you can actually make sure that the citizens benefit from minerals of this country to a point that they do not want to even do those jobs. It must not come to a point where others are willing because there is a need and a want based on people needing to eat.
And also, you can't stay in here once your documents have expired. Even if you got them legally, but they've expired, you have to leave and then reapply. There is no country in the world that I'm aware of that does that. I know there are issues in Ireland. I know there are issues in England. Of course, there have been issues in America with the Mexicans and in other places as well. Countries like Ghana have famously deported a lot of people historically. Countries like Nigeria, there have been many issues. These stories get brought up about South Africans in exile. South Africans were not necessarily going into countries illegally. They were fleeing from persecution. And they did speak to the authorities, which is why they ended up in refugee camps. But all of this just to say, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry as a South African for taking my personal experiences and my personal opinions and trying to make them like the South African opinion, as some of these other people are doing.
I personally forgive you because you open about it and you're talking about these things and teaching a lot of people. But that is the thing. People are coming from privileged circumstances, and then they always choose to want to portray their belief on the masses, which is wrong. If you're leading people, you need to be able to listen to them. Like being in a relationship, you can't always be right. Learn to listen. learn to listen. Learn to actually take away some of the things you deeply believe in or that you are vindicated on, because you have to accommodate your person. Not say you must forget about who you are, but try to also understand from the side where the people are coming. And then once you can satisfy them, then you can also bring what you want to bring to the table, if you are that element about foreigners.
The reality is that I'm privileged. I live in a secure complex.
And that is how these people are living. Man, like Thabo Mbeki. For how long has he been living well? And he's woman, like he's got everything when it comes to money. So when he's talking about migrants not taking the people's jobs, did you see the amount of shops that are closed? The videos that people are posting? That shows you that all these shops are owned by foreigners. And now South Africans need to start owning shops. That way you can hire our own. That way our own have the money and it can start to circulate. And there can start to be mentalities and teachings and concepts that South Africans really need to now drill into their heads about entrepreneurship, and then actually competing, and then not having people who are competing unfairly because they are more organized than us. And then that way we can begin to fight this thing that we call in poverty, especially looking at how our ministers are talking about this.
We have access, controlled access. We've got security guards 24/7. So not just anyone can come in and out. The job, the income that I make is not threatened by people that are in South Africa illegally. You know, I make a lot of my money online. So if anything, whether legal or illegal, foreign or South African, if you're watching, I get to make money. So I speak from a position of privilege. A lot of the politicians, a lot of the leaders, a lot of the celebrities that are speaking are also speaking from a place of privilege.
And that is honest. They all speak from a place of privilege.
They don't live in informal settlements. They don't have relatives that have been murdered by illegal foreigners. They haven't been hijacked. They haven't dealt with serious crime. So it's easy for them to, you know, to have the intellectual opinion, as I did in the past. But we're all wrong. We're all wrong. And, you know, sitting with the advocate Ike Khumalo, one of the things he spoke about was whataboutism. When you're raising an issue, the issue may be undocumented illegal foreigners, of which the biggest issue that South Africans have, or the South Africans that are crying out, are African illegal foreigners from Mozambique, Malawi, Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe. That's who they're complaining about. The Lesotho, the Zamazamas, etc. And then you're like, but what about the white foreigners? What about apartheid? What about unemployment? It's whataboutism. Instead of focusing on the issue, imagine fees must fall when the students were protesting. You're like, yeah, but what about unemployment? Yes, but the fees are too high. We can't afford them. Yes, but what about apartheid? Yes, but we can't afford the fees and we think that our government. Yes, but what about GBV? Imagine when the GBV, gender-based violence, domestic violence activists were busy marching and asking for government to take notice. If someone was like, yeah, but what about racism? What about issues in the work environment? That's whataboutism. And many of us, including myself, have been doing this. If there are people complaining about an issue, we live in informal settlements, we live in townships. We are dealing with illegal immigrants, mostly from Africa, who are moving into spaces that they shouldn't be in, who are taking up positions of employment that South Africans could be accessing. And then you come and make all this noise. And sadly, people are misusing and abusing the term Pan-Africanism and Ubuntu when it suits them. These words have actually been dirtied. These were good words, like being woke. Being woke was a good term. It was like, I'm not sleeping, I'm not ignorant, I'm woke, I'm awake, I'm mentally liberated. But today it's been made dirty. You cannot ask for Pan-Africanism when you are in a country illegally and the country of your origin does not allow for people to come in there illegally. You cannot ask for Ubuntu when you are expecting someone to bend their morals for you when you will not return the favor. So it becomes very sad for me in a lot of the conversations and discussions that we've been having. I understand Jacinta Ngobese Zuma, Phakela Umthakathi, Ngizwe Mchunu are representing the cries of ordinary people that are frustrated. There are people saying they are funded by Israel. There are people saying, no, there's a bigger agenda. At the end of the day, South Africa is a sovereign state because of colonialism. Like all other African states, it's sovereign. When you come into South Africa, you need to ask for permission. Just as if I want to go to Zimbabwe, I must ask for permission. If I want to go to Nigeria, I must ask for permission. If I want to...
And that is simply just what the people are asking for. Because nobody wants an invasion. Nobody wants an invasion. I will go back to talk about the Malawians that we see in that Sherwood place. That is an invasion. Just look at when they were chasing the police away just now at the end of the day. Just because they were frustrated, they were not getting transport. That is what we call an invasion. Invasion. Listen to it properly. Invasion. I don't know if you guys know what an invasion. I'm sure we know what that is. And then we had the president here who has the guts. Who's got the guts to stand in front of SABC and answer such a question when he's asked, why did he have to wait for so long? Why did he not act all this time? Ramaphosa doesn't have an answer. Because what he's giving, it is just a PR answer. It is not something that is tangible. You know, if it was Advocate Chaskelson, he would say, that's plausible, Mr. President. You know, the Madanga Commission. They will just tell him straight, Mr. President. That's not it. So now you are acting as if you have done something. Where are the facts? Because he hasn't done anything all this time, all these years. The president has done nothing about this. He waited. At some point, they were calling people vigilantes up until he had realized that now, the purple dance. The people are actually growing in numbers and supporting this thing. Because even if they say it's funded, if something is within you, you know that your kids and your cousins are smoking these dwellings and they are destroying them. And you feel that pain within your family. And you see these foreigners coming into your country doing all of these things. And then you see all of the medias from Ghana pretending as if these people are some sort of good things. Why should somebody come from 10 countries there in the east or the west of Africa? Why should somebody come in there from the west of Africa to South Africa just to cut hair? How, guys, imagine. To cut hair, to do nails, to do hair and braid. But hey, let's listen to our president. Omungameli.
March and other groupings for you to actually start these interventions. I would argue you've lost the room, Mr. President.
No, we have actually been doing a lot of work, changing our immigration laws and also empowering our immigration officials to address these specific issues. And of course, the challenge of immigration that we're facing is in the end an economic one, because those who come to our country are in the main economic migrants or refugees. So therefore, we want the whole region and the continent to address this issue together with us, so that we address the root cause of why people would leave their own country.
Besides the idea that the president is coming with, which is a good idea. It is a good idea. Because if all economies could start to grow, I think there could start to be some competition, and they would also then push us to grow. You understand? Because where we at, nobody wants to be staying at this position. We really need to grow. But you should also be focusing on your security measures and making sure that this country is protected and that we are far away from a possible invasion. Mr. President, protect your country. Do what is right. No country allows so many people to just run free without being able to be tracked, without a plan for them. When they come here, you have to be having a plan for them. If you say you need 10 professors, it's because you have a plan for them. If you say you need 10,000 bricklayers, it is because you have a plan for them. Unlike the minister today who said South Africans never used to be bricklayers. Oh, I feel like I really need to find that. Oh, I don't think they think it is this lady. Yes, Minister in the presidency for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Sindisiwe Chukunga. South Africans, I'm laughing because when you listen to what this lady has had to say, it's called on private sector to collaborate with government in addressing youth unemployment in the country. Oh well, let me get back to focus. Guys, when I speak about an invasion, this is what we're speaking about. Look at these numbers. These are just military-aged men ready. In one place, the police had to run away.
Bonakele bafowethu batoyiza baseMalawi. Batoyiza manje. Bonakele senigijime ngafika esigodlweni esikhulu. Bonakele kakhulu bafowethu. Bonakele. Hey, kwenzakalani mnganami? Hey. Mnganami kwenzakalani? Bathini? Bathini mnganami?
We're going home now on time, man. Siyahamba man.
Ubani eqhamukile la? Ubani eqhamukile niphazamisa?
Bona bayafika lana thina sihlele lana ngiyekile emsebenzini manje nifika lana sizosijukumeza indaba
Ubani lesefile?
senzeni kuni akhona abantu bafika emshayeni lana babemeza kakhulu uyabona basima mthakathi
bazonifumela nihlezi.
Don't want them here.
So now they're actually angry that Kazlagabo Pagela Mtagati had actually came there. But I haven't seen a video. I've only seen a video of Ngizwe and Jacinta. So now they're actually crying foul. They are crying foul. Which makes sense. Somebody can't be chasing you away and then also coming there. It's like spitting on your grave, you know? But guys, we'll just have to see how things go with all of this, because it is better that these people are evacuated out of this place. We really need them out. We don't need, like, these people are not investors. These are not investors. This is just a workforce. Military-aged men.